Welcome back. Tonight we step into the hidden playbook of true power, a guide not written in titles or wealth, but in the discipline of the mind. If you've ever wondered why some people remain unshaken while the world around them burns, you're in the right place. The hall trembles with noise. Shouts rise like thunder, accusations pierce the air, and the crowd waits for an eruption. At the center sits a single figure, a leader, motionless, unflinching. Their hands rest calmly on the table, their gaze steady, their breath even. Around them, chaos rages. Advisors demand action, rivals whisper insults. The room seethes with tension, yet this leader does not rise, does not argue, does not take the bait. They remain silent. This moment is more than stillness. It is dominance. Because what unsettles the crowd is not what the leader says or does, but what they choose not to say, what they choose not to do. We are conditioned to think of power as loud, forceful, overwhelming. But what if true power is something else entirely? What if real strength lies not in striking back, but in refusing to be moved at all? So I ask you, what makes someone truly powerful? It's not the battles they win, it's the battles they refuse to fight. The greatest strength does not always come from the sword or the shout. It comes from the discipline to withhold reaction when every fiber of the world demands you explode. Tonight, we're going to explore 6 things powerful people never react to. Not sometimes, not occasionally, never. 6 moments that would make the average person boil with anger, break down in despair, or lose themselves in temptation, yet the powerful stay calm, grounded, and unshaken. Each one is a test of composure, each one a crucible of strength. We'll journey through history, where Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca held their ground against ridicule and ruin. We'll step into fiction, where imagined warriors and leaders show us the timeless image of restraint as mastery. And we'll bring it into the modern day, where insults, rumors, setbacks, and even praise demand more from us than we realize. Along the way, you'll see how philosophy, discipline, and perspective intertwine to create an armor thicker than steel. The ability to control your own mind when the world loses control around you. Because the battlefield of life isn't fought only with armies, money, or politics, it's fought within, in the split-second decision of whether you react or remain still. So as we begin, I want to ask you something. Think about your own life for a moment. What is one thing you wish you could stop reacting to? Maybe it's criticism, maybe it's gossip, maybe it's failure, or the sting of loss. Whatever it is, imagine how much freer, stronger, and calmer you would feel if it no longer had power over you. Hold on to that thought, because by the end of this journey, you may discover that the path of Stoic mastery isn't about controlling the world. It's about controlling yourself, and it all begins here, with silence in the middle of chaos. Picture this, a crowded marketplace in ancient Rome. A senator shouts across the forum, hurling insults at a rival. The crowd leans in, waiting for a fiery response, hungry for drama. Yet the rival does something unexpected. He doesn't shout back. He doesn't flinch. He simply continues walking, as if the insult had never been spoken. The crowd murmurs in confusion. Was this weakness, or was it something far greater? This is the power of non-reaction. Insults are traps, carefully laid to provoke you into abandoning your composure. They pull at the ego, daring you to defend yourself, to lash out, to prove them wrong. But here's the paradox. The moment you react, you've already lost. You've given control to the other person. You've let their words dictate your state of mind. And that is exactly what the powerful never allow. Stoic philosophy teaches us that insults only sting if we grant them permission. Epictetus once said, "If someone reviles you, it is his own action. You can choose to interpret it as harm or not." Think about that. The insult doesn't carry inherent power. It's our reaction that breathes life into it. Without your consent, the insult withers, hollow and harmless. Consider Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. He faced endless criticism from politicians, generals, even his own people. Yet in his private writings, the Meditations, he constantly reminded himself not to be disturbed by words. He wrote, "If an insult from another stirs you, it is your own opinion that has provoked you." He knew the truth. The insult itself is powerless. It's our attachment to reputation that causes the pain. Now imagine a modern version of this scenario. You post something online and suddenly the comments flood in. Someone mocks you. Someone twists your words. You feel the heat rise in your chest, your fingers itching to strike back. But what happens if you don't? What if you simply carry on, as though their words were smoke drifting in the air? The effect is immediate. The aggressor loses their audience. The crowd sees composure, not weakness. The power shifts back to you. Fiction often mirrors this lesson. Picture a warrior in a tavern, insulted by a drunken patron eager to pick a fight. The warrior could crush him easily, but instead he turns back to his drink. The room falls silent. Everyone realizes who holds the true power. It isn't the one shouting, it's the one in control of himself. The truth is, insults say more about the giver than the receiver. They expose the speaker's insecurity, anger, or envy. By not reacting, you hold up a mirror that reflects their weakness back to them. Your silence becomes louder than any retort. So the question is, how do you master this art? The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Ask yourself, does this insult truly harm me, or is it just air? Remember, powerful people don't waste energy swatting at words. They save their strength for battles that matter. Now I'll turn it to you. Think of the last time someone insulted you. What if you had met it with silence instead of reaction? Wouldn't that have felt like victory? The story begins in whispers. A single voice in a crowded room suggests something unflattering. Another person repeats it. Soon, the whisper multiplies until it becomes a rumor spreading like wildfire. No one knows if it's true. No one even stops to ask. But suddenly, your reputation, your name, your very identity feels under siege. This is the world of rumors and lies, an invisible battlefield where words, not weapons, can destroy legacies. Most people panic in this moment. They scramble to explain themselves, to fight back, to stamp out every falsehood before it takes root. But here's where powerful people stand apart. They don't chase lies. They don't waste their energy wrestling with shadows. They let the truth reveal itself in time. History gives us countless examples. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor. During his reign, enemies accused him of weakness, of being too contemplative to lead Rome's armies. Yet Marcus did not call for trials or proclamations to defend himself. Instead, he focused on what he could control, leading with virtue, acting with integrity, and ensuring his deeds spoke louder than gossip. Centuries later, he's remembered as one of the greatest emperors in history, not because he silenced lies, but because he outlived them with action. Seneca, too, knew this battle well. As a tutor to the young Emperor Nero, he was accused of greed, corruption, and treachery. Some of the accusations may have been exaggerated, others entirely fabricated, but Seneca's writings show us his response. He refused to let slander dictate his peace of mind. He reminded himself, and us, that reputation is not within our control. Our character, however, always is. Fiction helps us see the same truth in sharper relief. Imagine a wise ruler in a kingdom, accused of betrayal by jealous courtiers. The people murmur, the nobles circle. The ruler knows he could denounce his enemies, demand loyalty oaths, or punish the liars. But instead, he chooses restraint. He continues ruling with fairness, justice, and clarity. Weeks later, the rumors die, and the liars reveal themselves by their desperation. The ruler emerges untarnished, not because he fought every rumor, but because he made the lies irrelevant. Now let's fast forward to today. In the digital age, rumors move faster than ever. A single tweet, a manipulated video, or a half-truth can reach millions before the truth even laces up its boots. And the natural impulse is to react, to clarify, to defend yourself in front of the crowd. Yet here's the paradox. The more attention you give to a lie, the more oxygen it gets. By acknowledging it, you confirm its existence in the minds of others. Silence, on the other hand, robs the rumor of momentum. Stoic philosophy equips us for this. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. A rumor is only as harmful as the weight we give it. If we anchor ourselves in virtue, living with honesty, acting with fairness, staying aligned with our values, then rumors become like waves crashing against a rock, loud but ultimately powerless. There's also a deeper psychological effect at play. When you don't react to lies, you flip the script on your accusers. Their intent is to provoke you into desperation, to watch you scramble and sweat. But if you remain calm, composed, and unmoved, they are the ones left unsettled. The crowd begins to question the liars. If the rumor mattered, wouldn't he have reacted? Maybe there's nothing to it after all. Your restraint becomes proof of your strength. That doesn't mean ignorance. Powerful people don't simply bury their heads in the sand. Instead, they redirect their energy toward what builds resilience. Their work, their actions, their consistency. Over time, the pattern of your deeds silences lies more effectively than any speech ever could. Think about the people you respect most in life. Chances are, it's not those who rush to defend their names at every insult. It's those whose character is so steady, so undeniable, that lies bounce off them like arrows against armor. Their power lies in patience, in letting the truth reveal itself slowly but surely. So here's a question for you. What rumor or falsehood in your own life have you been tempted to fight? What if, instead of burning your energy in defense, you chose to rise above it, to let your actions over time write the story for you? Could you allow silence to be your greatest rebuttal? The Stoics remind us that reputation is a fickle thing, never fully in our control, but character, that is always ours to guard. And it is through character, not reaction, that we outlast rumors, dismantle lies, and prove ourselves truly powerful. Failure, the very word, makes the heart tighten. We are taught to fear it, to hide it, to run from it. Yet every powerful figure, real or imagined, has walked through the fire of failure and emerged transformed. The difference is not that they never stumble. The difference is how they respond when the ground gives way beneath them. Picture a Roman general on campaign. His strategy collapses, his soldiers scatter, and the banners of Rome fall into enemy hands. The camp is heavy with shame, the whispers of defeat crawling through the night air. Most leaders would rage, panic, or break down in despair. But imagine instead a general who sits quietly by the fire, studying the maps again, adjusting, recalculating. To his men, his calm is unsettling. To his enemies, it is terrifying. They see not a broken man, but someone already planning the next victory. This is the Stoic way. Failure is not the end, it is information. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the setback is not a barrier, it's the path itself. For the Stoic, failure isn't shameful, it's raw material for growth. Take Seneca, advisor to emperors and one of the richest men in Rome. Despite his wealth and influence, he endured exile, political disgrace, and ultimately an order to take his own life. Yet through all this, he kept writing, turning his misfortunes into teachings that still inspire us today. Seneca understood that external circumstances, loss, disgrace, even death, could not rob him of the inner power to choose his response. His failures became his legacy. Epictetus went even further. Born a slave, crippled from abuse, he might have seemed destined for a life defined by failure. Yet he transformed his suffering into wisdom, teaching that setbacks are not punishment, but training. He compared life to a wrestling school, where every hardship is a sparring partner, shaping you into something stronger. Fiction often illustrates this vividly. Picture a warrior in a story who loses a great battle. He returns home in shame, mocked, and diminished. Yet instead of retreating into bitterness, he trains harder, studies his mistakes, and grows into a leader greater than before. His eventual triumph is not despite his failure, it is because of it. The very setback that once defined him becomes the foundation of his future power. Now think about how failure shows up today. Maybe it's a project collapsing at work, a business that never took off, or a personal relationship that fell apart. The temptation is to see these moments as permanent scars, but powerful people see them as stepping stones. They don't dwell in the rubble, they build something new with it. The modern Stoic practice here is simple but profound. Reframe. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "How is this useful to me?" Failure reveals blind spots. It humbles arrogance. It forces adaptation. And those who learn to reframe setbacks, not as dead ends but as detours, discover that failure is not their enemy, it is their teacher. Here's the deeper truth. Reacting emotionally to failure, rage, despair, self-pity, only prolongs the suffering. It burns energy without creating solutions. But non-reaction, calm reflection, and steady adjustment allow you to transform failure into fuel. The Stoics remind us that fortune can take away everything except one thing: your ability to decide how you respond. There is also a subtle power in the way others perceive your handling of failure. People expect collapse. They expect excuses. When you respond instead with composure, with a clear head and quiet resilience, you inspire trust. You become the unshakable center others can rely on. Failure, in this way, becomes not just personal growth, but leadership itself. So here is your challenge. Think of your last failure. Maybe it still stings. Maybe it still feels unresolved. What if you could go back and reframe it, not as an end, but as preparation? What skills did it force you to learn? What strength did it secretly build? What future success might still be hidden inside that apparent defeat? The Stoics would tell you, stop fearing failure. Fear never learning from it, because every setback is a forge, and you are the iron, heated, hammered, shaped, not broken. And that is why powerful people never react to failure with despair. They transform it into the very source of their strength. The crowd roars. In the theater, in the Senate, in the stadium, voices rise not in praise but in scorn. Boos, hisses, jeers, criticism delivered not by one voice but by thousands. Imagine yourself standing there, every eye fixed on you, the tide of disapproval pressing in like a storm. Most of us would crack under such weight. Anger, defensiveness, embarrassment. These are the natural reactions. But for the powerful, for those who live by Stoic mastery, there is a different path. They don't break, they don't rage, they don't even flinch, they listen, or they simply remain unmoved. This isn't passivity, it's control. And it unnerves people more than any shouted rebuttal ever could. In Rome, emperors faced this test constantly. Marcus Aurelius, though revered by history, was not always loved in his lifetime. He endured public criticism, whispers in the Senate, and discontent among the masses. Yet in his meditations he reminded himself, "If anyone can prove me wrong, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone, but the one who persists in his error and ignorance harms himself." Notice the dual wisdom here. Marcus stayed open to truth hidden in criticism, but he refused to be ruled by the crowd's judgment. He took what was useful, ignored the rest, and kept walking forward. Seneca echoed this resilience. He argued that criticism is inevitable for anyone who dares to live differently. "If you wish to be approved by all," he wrote, "you must resemble all." For him, mass disapproval was not a sign of failure. It was proof that you were living authentically, not bending to the lowest common denominator. Fiction dramatizes this beautifully. Imagine a philosopher in a grand forum presenting an idea that cuts against tradition. The mob erupts in mockery, demanding he take back his words. Instead of arguing, he pauses, lets the jeers subside, and then calmly repeats his point with even greater clarity. The crowd falls silent, not because they all agree, but because they recognize the courage of someone unwilling to bow to their noise. His strength is not in silencing them, but in refusing to be silenced himself. In our modern world, the crowd looks different, but it may be even louder. Social media, workplace culture, public opinion, each can turn critical in an instant. A single post may trigger thousands of negative comments. A bold idea at work might spark resistance. And once again, the temptation is to fire back, to argue, to justify. But here lies the Stoic secret: don't confuse volume with truth. Criticism from the masses is often just an echo chamber of emotion, not wisdom. That doesn't mean ignore it entirely. The powerful treat criticism like sifting for gold in a river. Most of it is mud, irrelevant, emotional noise. But occasionally, buried within, is a nugget of truth, something useful that can sharpen character or improve judgment. The art lies in listening without being consumed, discerning without being wounded. Why is this so difficult? Because humans crave approval. We are wired to seek belonging, to win applause. So when the masses disapprove, it feels like rejection of our very existence. But the Stoics remind us, the opinions of the crowd are beyond our control. To tie our worth to them is to hand over our peace of mind. Instead, tie your worth to your virtues, your actions, your choices. Let your inner compass, not the crowd, guide your steps. There is also a quiet power in the optics of non-reaction. When a leader remains calm under criticism, it sends a message: I am larger than the noise. Followers respect this. Enemies are unsettled by it. The masses may jeer louder in the moment, but over time, they remember the composure. In fact, history shows us that criticism fades, but dignity endures. Think of figures you admire. Chances are they weren't universally loved in their lifetimes. Many were ridiculed, doubted, even despised. Yet they stood firm. And because of that, their names outlasted the noise of their critics. So ask yourself, how do you react when the masses turn against you? Do you scramble to explain? Do you retreat in shame? Or could you practice the Stoic way, taking what is useful, discarding the rest, and walking forward with calm purpose? The next time criticism swells around you, remember this: the crowd is fickle. Today's boos may be tomorrow's cheers, and neither should rule your soul. The powerful don't let the masses dictate their identity. They let truth, reason, and inner strength decide who they are. That is why criticism from the masses is something powerful people never react to. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't define them. The fire spreads through the palace, devouring marble halls, priceless art, and treasures collected over a lifetime. Courtiers scream, servants scramble with buckets of water, their efforts useless against the roaring blaze. In the middle of it all, the king stands motionless, watching the flames consume what once defined his power. His voice is calm, almost chilling. "You can take my walls, but not my will." This image may sound like legend, but it illustrates a truth the Stoics held above all. Loss is inevitable. Misfortune is certain. To live is to risk having everything you love stripped away. But how you meet that loss, whether with despair or with calm acceptance, determines whether you remain powerful or become broken. For most people, loss feels unbearable. We react with panic when wealth disappears, with bitterness when fortune turns, with devastation when loved ones are taken from us. Misfortune presses against our deepest fears, reminding us how little we control. Yet this is exactly where the Stoics found freedom, by learning not to react with desperation, but to accept, adapt, and endure. Take Epictetus, for example, born into slavery, crippled by his master, stripped of dignity and freedom. If anyone had the right to despair, it was him. Yet he refused to let misfortune define him. Instead, he taught that our possessions, our status, even our health, are not truly ours. They can vanish at any moment. What is ours always is our ability to respond with virtue. He wrote, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." His life became proof of that philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, too, endured unimaginable loss. He buried children, faced plagues that swept through his empire, and lived constantly under the shadow of war. Yet, in his meditations, he reminded himself each day that loss was part of nature. When you kiss your son, whisper to yourself, "Tomorrow he may die." This was not cold detachment, it was radical clarity. By remembering the fragility of life, Marcus trained himself to meet loss with strength, not despair. Even Seneca, often caricatured as wealthy and comfortable, understood the role of misfortune. He warned his readers to practice poverty, to strip life down to the bare minimum, so that when true loss arrived, it would not catch them unprepared. For Seneca, misfortune was not a threat, but a teacher, a reminder that what is truly valuable cannot be taken away. Fiction paints this lesson in vivid color. Imagine a warrior who loses his kingdom, his fortune, even his family. In despair, he could collapse, wandering aimlessly, broken by grief. But the story becomes powerful when he refuses to let misfortune end him. Instead, he rebuilds, not his palace, but his soul. He learns that while fate can strip away everything external, it cannot touch his discipline, his wisdom, or his will. This transformation makes him more formidable than before. Today, we face misfortune in different forms: the sudden loss of a job, the betrayal of a friend, a diagnosis that shatters the life we imagined. These moments shake us, revealing how fragile our comforts really are. But here lies the Stoic choice. Do we react with despair, or do we see loss as part of the natural order? Powerful people choose the latter. They grieve, but they do not collapse. They adapt, but they do not surrender. There is also a hidden strength in how misfortune tests those around us. When you lose everything and yet remain calm, people notice. They draw courage from your composure. They see in you an anchor they can cling to. This is why loss, when met with dignity, becomes a form of leadership. It turns pain into power, not just for yourself, but for others who are watching. The Stoics remind us that all external things, wealth, health, relationships, status, are on loan from the universe. They were never truly ours to keep. When they are taken back, we may feel pain, but we should not feel surprise. True wealth lies in what cannot be stolen: integrity, wisdom, discipline. So here is the challenge for you. Think of something you fear losing most. What if it vanished tomorrow? How would you meet that misfortune? Would you rage against the inevitable, or could you stand firm, knowing that your true strength lies beyond possession? Powerful people never react to loss with despair. They recognize it as part of the human condition. They mourn, but they endure. They rebuild, but they never lose themselves. And in that endurance lies a form of power greater than any fortune or crown, the power to remain whole when the world falls apart. The banquet hall glows with torchlight. Courtiers lean in, eager to flatter their ruler. Voices flow like honey. You are wise beyond measure. Your victories will be sung for centuries. There is no one greater. The ruler smiles, politely, yet inside remains unmoved. Why? Because the truly powerful know that praise, like insult, is a trap. Most of us crave approval. Compliments lift us, applause intoxicates us, flattery makes us feel invincible. But here lies the danger. When you begin to depend on praise, you hand control of your happiness to others. You let their approval dictate your sense of worth. The Stoics saw this as just as dangerous as reacting to insults, because both are chains that bind the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this constantly. As emperor, he was surrounded by sycophants, yet in his private writings, he reminded himself daily, "Do not be intoxicated by applause. Remember how quickly all things are forgotten." He urged himself to see praise for what it was, fleeting noise, no different from criticism. What mattered was whether he lived according to reason and virtue, not whether the crowd cheered or booed. Seneca was even sharper on this point. He warned that flattery was poison, crafted to weaken judgment and feed ego. It is a great man who can treat applause as he would treat criticism. In other words, if you become too attached to being praised, you lose the ability to stand alone. You become a slave not to insults, but to approval. Consider the fictional image of a warrior, offered endless songs of glory. His ego swells, and soon he grows careless, reckless, overconfident. Praise blinds him to his flaws. His downfall comes not from his enemies, but from his own intoxication with flattery. Contrast this with another figure, a quiet general who accepts recognition with humility, then returns to his work unshaken. His power grows not from applause, but from discipline. In our modern world, this lesson is more urgent than ever. Social media thrives on likes, shares, and approval. Entire careers rise and fall on public praise. The dopamine rush of recognition is addictive, and most people become trapped chasing it. But powerful people know better. They see praise as data, not as identity. They may appreciate kind words, but they do not anchor their self-worth to them. There's also a subtle psychological power in staying grounded when praised. When someone showers you with compliments and you remain calm, it unsettles them. They expect eagerness, a rush of gratitude, even vanity. But your composure signals something else: strength. You are not dependent on their words, you are complete without them. The Stoics practiced a kind of mental training here. When praised, they reminded themselves of their flaws, their mortality, the fleeting nature of fame. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how quickly even the greatest names fade into obscurity. To him, glory was dust on the wind. Why then should he allow flattery to cloud his judgment? It's not about rejecting kindness or gratitude. It's about perspective. Powerful people accept praise with humility, but they do not let it inflate them. They treat it the same way they treat criticism, as an opinion, not as truth. They know that applause and insult are two sides of the same coin, both outside their control, both ultimately irrelevant to their inner compass. So here is the challenge for you. Think about the last time someone praised you. Did you feel a surge of pride? Did you cling to that feeling, replay it in your mind, let it define you? What if you could accept the compliment gracefully but remain unmoved within, knowing your worth doesn't rise or fall with another person's opinion? The Stoics would say, let neither flattery nor insult shake you. Stay steady in virtue, and you will never be a prisoner to the crowd. Powerful people never react to praise with intoxication because they know it can be just as dangerous as insult, failure, or loss. They remain grounded, centered, and free. And that is the final secret, to master yourself so completely that neither insult nor praise has power over you. To be unshaken in criticism and uncorrupted in applause. That is Stoic mastery. That is true power. The battlefield is quiet after the storm. Insults have been hurled, lies whispered, failures endured, criticism shouted, losses suffered, praises sung. And yet the powerful figure remains, still, calm, unshaken. This is the paradox of non-reaction. It looks like weakness from the outside, but in truth, it is the ultimate expression of strength. To remain unmoved in the face of attack, temptation, or loss is to wield a power greater than any army or crown. It is the power to control oneself when the world loses control. Think of it this way. When you react, you hand over your energy. Every outburst, every desperate defense, every emotional collapse feeds the forces against you. But when you choose not to react, you conserve your strength. You make your enemies look small, your critics irrelevant, your flatterers impotent. You show the world that you cannot be controlled from the outside. You only move by your own inner compass. History proves this. Marcus Aurelius ruled through plague and war, yet never allowed panic or praise to alter his steady hand. Epictetus was enslaved, abused, and maimed, yet remained freer in spirit than his masters. Seneca faced disgrace and death with the calm of a man who knew that fortune could take everything but his will. Their legacies endure not because they conquered others, but because they mastered themselves. Fiction tells us the same story in another language. Heroes who ignore the baited insult. Leaders who refuse to fight rumors with anger. Warriors who stand in silence as their enemies shout, only to win not with words, but with patience. Their strength lies not in what they do, but in what they refuse to do. So why does it matter today? Because our lives are filled with provocations. Social media demands reaction. Work pressures test our composure. Relationships tug at our emotions. The world constantly dares us to lose ourselves in the noise. But the Stoic lesson is timeless. The person who can remain calm when others panic becomes unshakable. They inspire trust. They command respect. They walk through chaos as though untouchable. This is the fallout of non-reaction. Power. Not the noisy kind, not the flashy kind, but the quiet, enduring power that bends the world around it. Return now to the image we began with. A leader sitting in silence while chaos erupts around them. At first, the crowd mistakes it for weakness, but slowly they realize the truth. The silence is not emptiness, it is control. The refusal to react is not surrender, it is mastery. And so I ask you again, what would your life look like if you mastered this art? If insults rolled off you like rain, if lies lost their grip, if failure became fuel, if criticism sharpened you, if loss could not break you, if praise could not corrupt you. This is the promise of Stoic philosophy. Not a life free from pain or misfortune, that is impossible, but a life where no external force can dictate your inner state. A life where you remain steady, resilient, and powerful, no matter what storms surround you. Now, I want to turn this question toward you. What's one thing you wish you could stop reacting to? Is it the sting of someone's words, the fear of failure, the hunger for approval? Share it in the comments. Your answer might inspire someone else.